Hey there, thanks so much for stopping by. I'm so grateful for each of you. My name is Robin, and you're listening to the Live Life Balanced podcast. Living life balanced is something that I hope each of you desire, and every time you listen to one of these episodes, I want to celebrate you for showing up for yourself. I'm a former teacher, now integrative holistic nutrition coach, and a mom to two beautiful girls who originally inspired me to go on this journey. Over the last 20 years, I've learned a lot and I've been growing a lot, and that ultimately has led me to be able to create a healthier, balanced lifestyle for my family. It's definitely been quite a trip, but I'm super excited to see where this is going to take me. I love learning and sharing, of course, but I really love to empower people to go on their own health and wellness journey. Let's be honest, it's really hard to grow if we're not pouring into ourselves, right? Let me ask you, when's the last time that you took time just for yourself? We all need this for our own health. This weekly podcast will be filled with simple, actionable steps to guide you to create a life that you desire. Over the years, I always hear how it feels so overwhelming to live a healthy lifestyle because of all the confusing information out there. And, it can feel like a lot, but it doesn't have to. We can unpack some of that together. How people are just frustrated with their health and that they just don't have the energy to get through the day. I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. Together, we're going to explore yummy whole foods, unpack some of that confusion, talk simple shifts and swaps, and learn how to feed ourselves from a holistic lens. I want you to discover what feeds you off of your plate, which is equally, if not more important than what you put in your mouth. We call these primary foods. Topics that we're going to talk about are things like, how do you move daily? What's your sleep like? Where do you find joy? What are the thoughts and stories that you tell yourself? And so much more. I want to be a guide for you and walk alongside of you on your wellness journey. I'll be sharing with you, but I'm also going to have other health and wellness experts on so that you guys can hear about a variety of topics from different points of view. And the idea is that you just take what serves you and just leave the rest. My ultimate desire is to build a community filled with beautiful souls like yourself who will support, encourage, and lift each other up so that we can thrive on our own journeys. I hope you walk away each week with a little nugget of gold that inspires you, makes you feel less overwhelmed, and more empowered to try different things that will move you towards a happier, healthy life that you want, because you're so worth it. We all are. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen. Hey y'all, welcome back to today's episode. Super excited to be chatting with Ydaiber, who's from the Rekindle Your Light podcast. In addition to being a podcaster, she's an actor. She tells compelling stories on screen, and she dives into the intricacies of human emotions. And beyond that spotlight, she steps into the role of a soul purpose coach, guiding individuals on their journeys. With an understanding of human design, she illuminates paths tailored for individuals' authentic needs. Furthermore, as an emotion code practitioner, she dives into the nuances of energy, facilitating emotional release and healing. Her passion lies in weaving together the threads of all of these skills, where self-discovery meets artistic expression and lives are ignited with purpose and authenticity. She is just a delight. She is so sweet and authentic, and I know you're going to love her as much as I do. And her story is maybe one that you've lived or maybe one that you have not lived, but she has never let the things in her life steer her in a direction other than growth. And that's what I love so much about her. She's a great example can be a great example to many of us. So without further ado, let's get into it and meet her. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to introduce you guys to Ydaiber. And I met her in a class maybe like 2 years ago.
No, I think it was like 6 months ago.
Really? Actually, well, it feels like I've known you for a lifetime.
I know.
I am really excited to have her on because she's a wealth of knowledge and things that I really know nothing about. And so we're all going to be learning together today. So hi, welcome. How are you doing? Thank you for
Thank
coming on.
you. Oh, thank you for having me. I know time flies and it feels like we have known each other forever. And the fact that you were in my podcast, I think makes that relationship even feel like it's been going on forever. But yeah, it's amazing what we've done in the last 6 months, I would say. So yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm doing really well. So thank you for having me.
that's awesome. And I can't believe it's been that short, but that just goes to show that when you find someone good, it feels like you've known them forever. So I do want to start out by just giving people a little background about yourself because you have a lot of diverse background of things that you've dabbled in. And I want people to understand, um, that you can have a variety of things going on that makes us whole. So could you just tell the audience a little bit about who you are and how you got where you are?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Venezuela, and I went the traditional route of going to college for something that I thought I wanted to do. I studied hospitality management. What I really loved about that world was mostly the culinary aspect of it. And I didn't really have any influence as far as like seeing women chefs back then doing what I thought I could do. So I stay in the safety route of going through having more of a managerial type of position in the hospitality world. So I worked in restaurants, but more in the front of the office kind of side. I also did event planning, event management. I eventually got to a point where I was the director of catering for HBO in New York City. So I've moved to several cities in between Venezuela and now and being in Los Angeles. But that is a career that I felt was there for a reason, but at the same time, it was not what really was calling my soul. And I always loved performing. And I really wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. And my parents were very practical and they were like, no, you're going to pick a career that is actually going to get you some money. And I am kind of grateful that that was the position because I wouldn't have gone through hospitality school if I didn't do that. And probably I wouldn't even be in the United States if I didn't do that, because that's what brought me to the States. I came with an internship. And once I was in the States and I was working very steady in the hospitality world, I I went through this transformation of wanting to really reconnect with what I wanted to do because I lost my sister. And that took me to a very, very dark place of literally just moving through the hamster wheel and going to work and rinse and repeat every day. And the longer hours I worked, the less I felt, the less I could connect with the grief that I needed to process. And that just got stuck in my body for years and years and years. So eventually it was theater that kind of helped me process some of that, because I rediscovered my love for arts and I was able to join a group in Florida. That's when I was living in Florida. And I ran into a teacher, which again, God, the universe sends us these angels and these people in our lives so that we can get to those points of making big decisions. And the decision was, he came to me and he said, listen, you're really talented, but I think you're wasting your time here in Florida. And we're talking about this is like 2007-ish. So when things were not that much as virtual and online as we have them now, it would have been a different story probably back then. But back then he was like, you need to go to like a big city. You need to go to like New York or Los Angeles. And I'm like, how am I going to do that? Like I had no idea. And he's like, well, let's try to see if we can get you into a program there, like maybe pick one. And I'm like, okay, New York, just because he felt closer.
Right.
And I'm like, New York. And he's like, okay. And he helped me to get into this. It was a summer program, but that allowed me to give me a taste for what my life could look like if I lived in the city. And I was like, huh. And I remember stepping, and I had visited New York, but as a tourist. But I remember that first day of being in New York as a student, as an actor, studying the craft, that I felt like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I want. And after I was done with the program, my husband and I, we were just dating at the moment, we decided to move to New York. And I spent 6 to 7 years in New York working as an actor, studying the craft. And I was doing still hospitality because it kind of paid the bills. So I was trying to manage both things at the same time. And it was a very creative hospitality job also, because they allowed me to kind of like create menus. Again, my favorite part, which was the culinary thing, create menus and run events and do all these fun things. And it was one of my favorite jobs ever. And at some point that I say, I really want to try LA now, and I want to see what it's like to work on film and TV at that level in the business in Hollywood. And we moved to LA. This is 2014. So it's been now in March is 10 years.
Wow.
So I know, I can't believe I have been here that long. And my career has taken many different shapes and forms. I have been very blessed to do some TV and some film work, but the bulk of my work is commercial and voiceover work. I do a lot of commercials in Spanish, like mostly voiceover. And I love it. I love, love, love using my voice so much. But as I was going through all these career change and these new city life, I lost my brother. And that was like a new, it honestly felt like deja vu. It don't honestly felt because he even died in the same circumstances. He was in a car accident.
Mm.
And to me, it felt so like, why? Because that's where we go. Like, why am I going through this again? Like, what am I supposed to be doing with this? And honestly, I didn't know. I just didn't know. I was so lost, but I felt like that awakened something in me that started to wanting me to connect more with the spiritual world. And I used to be super spiritual growing up. I remember I was one of the weird ones in my class who used to be into astrology and all these things and metaphysics back then, which again, we're talking about the 90s when in Venezuela, where nobody's really, there's a very small group of people talking about these themes. But I think I shut myself down with the loss of my sister because I felt that I could feel things and that I could not predict them, but almost like I could sense that something was going to happen. And I even told my sister that the week before she passed. So after I had that experience, I'm like, I shut myself down. I'm like, I don't want any of this. I do not want your information. Stay away, kind of thing. So when my brother passed, it was like that little, the door was just a little opening there of like, are you sure you don't want to explore this further? And I sort of did, but didn't do it fully. But I felt like I just never processed the grief of either one of them in a way that felt, oh, okay, I can take a breath. It was like I was always holding so tight into my emotions, into my pain, that I almost led with it. It was almost like there was an anger in me, there was a resentment, there was a guilt, there was a cynicism even. And I didn't like that. I just didn't like the way I was feeling. I didn't like the way I was going through life in a very dismissive way. And I remember running into a friend virtually because this was during the pandemic. And I was working a job. I had a job that I didn't love, but it was a job. And I was starting to feel stuck again. I was just like, oh, things are just not moving. Of course, there's the pandemic. There's not acting jobs. There's no auditions. So creatively, I was feeling really stuck. And I see this friend of mine on Instagram, and I was like, dude, you look good. You look really good. What's going on? And he was like, oh my goodness, I feel so good. I was introduced to this woman who does the emotion code. And I'm like, the emotion code? What is that? Never heard of it. Didn't have any reference whatsoever. And he said, why don't you read the book and let me know if it resonates? If it does, he says, I'll refer you to her. But he's like, I don't want you to go to her without having some baseline knowledge because then it might confuse you. And I'm like, fine, great. Devour the book in one day, like one of those audiobooks. I think I had it in like 1.5 speed so I could get through it very quickly. and I was in awe that an energy healing practice could be done at a proxy level where I didn't need to be with somebody in the same room, where somebody could connect to my subconscious somehow and then get rid of all these trapped emotions and this, these luggage that we carry through our life with these heavy things that have happened to us, and even the light things, because sometimes we don't even know what gets stored in the body that are just like simple things, that happen during our childhood or even as an adult. And again, I had no idea about any of this. And I decided
I'm just going to stop you for 1 second because it's so juicy and it's so good. And I know people listening are probably having some light bulbs, about just different traumatic things that they've been through, whether it's major trauma of losing somebody, whether it's, a split in a marriage, whether it's children leaving for college, whatever it is, we all go through like pivotal moments of when our body is reacting to something, to some scenario, to some situation. And if we haven't been taught or we don't have the knowledge of what to do with those things, everybody's personality and everybody's makeup handles things differently. But what we all have in common is that our body does absorb and does hold on to, even if you think you've let something go, even if you think you've dealt with it by whatever, not dealing with it, or maybe, going to counseling, or maybe, journaling, or maybe doing some of the steps, our body holds on to things. And I think it's fascinating that, we've not been taught any of this. This is not something that's in school. And I've had personal experiences of letting go of things by way of energy work. And it is so interesting, the beauty that you can find through that. It doesn't mean that it's woo-woo. It doesn't mean that you're disconnected if you are, maybe a Christian and believe in God. You're not being disconnected from your source. You're actually able, I think personally, to get more in touch with that part of you because you don't have as many blocks, because you don't have an ego that's stopping you from interacting with your higher being, and going internally. So first of all, thank you for sharing your story, because I know that's not an easy thing to share with the world, but it's serving a purpose, right? Mm-hmm. You're using that for good. And I think a lot of times when we're going through difficulty, we don't know how to do that. I have not read the Emotional Code book yet, but I'm certainly going to give it a read because it's always fascinating to me. And I definitely want to dive into what that looks like. But before we do, what were some of the tools that you were using prior to being introduced to this that helped you to cope or to work through your grief before being introduced to the emotional code? Just because I feel like people will be able to connect with that a little bit before learning what the emotional code actually is.
Yes, for me, I feel that art and creativity was a huge, huge aspect of it has been of my healing process. It's something, it's never ending for me, right? And this can come, okay, I'm an actor, but this could come from any sort of expression of creativity. This could come through writing. This could come through even the simplest things that sometimes we do on a daily basis. Cooking for me is a big outlet.
Creating a meal, yeah.
So for me, creativity is a huge, huge aspect of healing that goes hand in hand with everything else that I've done, and that has proven to be a medicine for my heart.
Yeah.
But also I did a traditional counseling. I did group therapy where there was a bunch of grieving people in a group. And to me, that didn't do it. Like, I just didn't feel comfortable in that environment. It just felt for me, too dramatic and too I don't necessarily wanted to do some of the exercises that I wanted to do. It just didn't connect. It didn't resonate with me, but I tried it. I gave it a try. And then I started going inwards, which I think that's where the things started shifting and when the things started to click. And by going inwards, I mean, both connecting with nature was a huge one for me, because I remember going in walks, because again, during the pandemic, there were the things that I had access to was taking my car, driving to the beach, and take a walk at the beach. I had access to those things. I had access, and a very solitary beach, by the way, which was great. Access to the mountain, access to hiking, access to running. Running for me has been a huge exercise in my life, almost my entire life. And that freedom that I feel when I run, it's probably one of my favorite feelings in the world. So all of those things were adding up. And then meditation started to be something more prevalent in my life. And I think when you start meditating, you don't know if you're doing it good, if you're doing it right. It's like, it's so confusing. It's like, am I supposed to be doing this way? And I do a lot of guided meditations because I just get very distracted very easily. So for me, it works better to have somebody telling me, okay, go back to the breath or let go of the thoughts. And those things seem to be very helpful for me. But I try many different type of meditations. And I think that process starting to feel like a little balm in my body, in my soul, but still wasn't hitting the full part of it. And I think the reason for that is because I had not gone to the root of it. Like I haven't dealt with the heavy emotions. I was doing it almost like in a superficial level. So yes, it was helping somehow, but the root of it was not being worked on. So I feel that it was not until I started working with the emotion code that I finally started lifting up the veil to those heavy emotions that I was so afraid to face. I was literally terrified. I didn't know. I think there was a part of me that felt comfortable being vulnerable in my circle, with my family, with my friends, but didn't feel comfortable doing that in front of strangers. Like if you would have told me that I was going to eventually have a podcast when I was going to talk about my story, I would be like, hell no.
Right,
I'm an, I'm,
exactly.
I'm an actor. I can do that from a character point of view, but not from my personal point of view. And that has shifted so much in the last few years. So when I ran into the emotion code and noticed and realized that there was an opportunity to let go of those emotions, I was hesitant because I was like a skeptic. I was like, oh, I don't
Sure,
know.
of course.
Let's see. But at the end of the day, I was like, well, it's energy, right? We're all energy. Everything is energy. So my mind understood the concept. And I
Mhm.
was like, and from the logical standpoint of view, it's like I removed, like you say, the woo-woo part of it. And I was like, no, it makes sense if you're able to tap into the energetic feel of something and you're able to transmute it into something else. It makes sense that I'm going to be able to let go of these things. So for me, it felt very logical, and I think that
Logical. I
that
love
that
that.
was that was and also it was written by a doctor, and I think that was the other thing that for me was very important. He's a chiropractor,
Mhm.
and he came up with the method as he was testing it in his own wife. So that to me was just science. I was just like, oh, I like this. I really like that part.
I love all of this. I mean, it's just giving me goosebumps and everything. And one of the things I wanted to say about like some of the traditional ways to unpack things, they are good for some people, right? And I call them sort of like the outer shell of the onion. And as you're doing each of those exercises, as you are learning to journal and express yourself through words, as you are doing talk therapy, as you are, learning to connect to your breath, because your breath is like one of the most amazing free tools that we all own. And, when we learn those things, it sort of like starts to peel, the visual I want people to understand is it like starts to peel back the onion, and then that root is exposed. And I love that emotional code, that book. I've seen it, and I do appreciate that it's written by a doctor. I do think that, um, you know, being rooted in science and the things helps people to understand, again, taking out, I'm not going to say the woo woo because energy is energy, but taking out the stigmatism that some people have around that. I think that's one of the things that I love about when I saw that he wrote that book. So, um, can you explain to people, like in basic terminology, like what the emotion code actually is?
Mhm.
And then we'll kind of unlayer like how it happens or what you do with it.
Yes, I think you started to paint the picture beautifully because actually they do use an onion as a metaphor to explain what the emotion code is. So
Okay.
it's literally an energy healing practice that helps you peel the layers that we've been holding on to for years and years and even generations, because
Mm.
sometimes we carry, right, the emotions that our ancestors came with, and we just feel things and we sometimes don't even know where this is coming from. So imagine literally that onion peeling so we can get to the core of it, so we can have the cleanest, purest heart
Yes,
open.
and I want to say something about the whole generational thing because I am fascinated by that. And it's like, when people are in conversation, they'll be like, "Oh, so and so is just like their dad," or "So and so has, um, like humor like their dad, or so and so has, they're quick to anger, like their dad, or not blaming all the dads, but I'm just using that as an example. But it's like, how is that? It does your being, your energy, it is partially genetic, right? But anger is not a genetic, isn't it? It's not something in your genes. It's something that is passed down, which is passed down through the energy of recreation and procreation and all the things. And so I just wanted to say that because I think it's fascinating, because we do use that terminology, but nobody really links that up to, well, how does it get from there to there? It's not just an monkey see, monkey do, right? It's something, internal.
Yeah, even when the moms are pregnant, right?
Yeah,
There's so
totally.
many emotions that you're going through that, of course, that is going to permeate inevitably to the baby.
Totally. And
the baby's already born with that. Yeah.
100%. I see that in both my girls in different ways. But, and it's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, you got that from me. Ooh, sorry. Oops. But also, between generations, we do have choices, right? And we can reprogram ourselves, and we can let things go. And that's what I believe, when we unlayer those things, we are stopping some of those traits in yourself to not be then passed on to your children, then to the children. That's how you break a generational cycle.
Yeah, so that is part of the idea, right? So the if I were to break it down into steps, the first thing we do once we have, let's say that I'm working with you, once I have you settled and grounded, then I have a list, I have a chart of emotions. We have a list of about 60 emotions. And once we have access to your subconscious, and this is, like I say, we do this by proxy. Some people use muscle testing for this to confirm that you are connected to the person and that you have the permission to do this interchange of energy. Then the next step is to identify the emotions, right? So it's like the things that are going to come up are the things that need to come out, that are first, that are like, again, think about that exterior layer of the onion, right? Like they need to come out, and they might not be the things that you're thinking about. It's the things that literally your subconscious is like, we need to let this go off. And something that was incredible for me is that this woman didn't know me. She didn't know me from social media. She had no idea about my story. There was no way that this woman would have known anything about me, because at that time I had not shared my story at all. And the first emotion that came out was grief. And I bursted into tears, because to me was so incredible. I just couldn't.
How, right?
How do you know? I asked her, how do you know? And she's like, I don't. She's like, your subconscious knows. And that's what it's telling me. And let me tell you, that first session, there was a lot of tears, because there was so much stuff that I've been holding on to for years. We're talking about a decade plus of these emotions that were so heavy that I never got to process, that I never got to truly, truly let go of. And it's not that the love, I still feel it. I still miss my sister. I still miss my brother. But that heaviness that I associated their departure with, it's pretty much gone. I don't feel what I was feeling before. I don't have this resentment. I have gratitude, actually. Like, all of these emotions have been transmuted into something so beautiful. I think that everything that I'm doing now is because of it. It's because I got to experience all of that. And so once you tap into somebody's subconscious and you start releasing the emotions, and you do this by acknowledging the emotions and using muscle testing, and then you use a magnet to remove the emotion from the person's body, from the person's subconscious, and intentionally asking for this emotion to be replaced with something filled with love and acceptance and surrendering. And love is the main intention that we're working in here. And we get to release between 5 and 10 emotions in any given session. And because I'm also a life coach, a soul purpose coach, then my sessions tend to be a little more immersed, because I do want to work more in the reprogramming of it. I do want to work more in the limiting beliefs part of it. And so we go a little deeper than just releasing an emotion after emotion after emotion. But in technicality, the process looks like literally You clear one emotion, you go into the next. You clear one emotion, you go into the next. So sometimes you finish a session and you're like, oh, we clear anger and grief and sadness and resentment and whatever else, and that's it. And you're like, well, it doesn't mean you're not going to feel these emotions again, but it just means that the emotion tied to that particular incident,
Correct.
it's not going to feel as heavy anymore. And, we think, for me, the results were immediate. Like that same day, I already felt like I was levitating. But for a lot of people, 2-3 days up to a week, that's when you start feeling, you become almost like less reactive to these things. Even when the memory or the conversation comes up, then you notice like, oh, wait a minute, I am not as upset as I used to get over this theme. So you start noticing the changes, and I did this for, I want to say it was like 2 good solid months of working weekly with this practitioner. And it was very interesting because this was around Thanksgiving time. So we're talking about the end of the year. And I remember January, girl, I was glowing. Like the same thing that I saw in my friend, people were seeing in me. Like strangers were coming up to me and say, do I know you? Like there was something super magnetic about me that people were just feeling drawn to me. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, but I guess, yeah, magnetism would be the word. And then in February, so this is like January. Oh, and then I started like booking more acting jobs, and I got like my role that I did in the show Hacks, which to me was one of the best gifts I have ever gotten in my acting career. And I was feeling on top of the world. And then in February, my dad dies. And it was like, whew, the rug was pulled again. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Now I have tools. Now I've done a lot of this practice. This is not my first rodeo. It's like, I know what to do. It might look different this time because obviously the relationship is different. The emotions are different, but I have the tools. And I remember calling my practitioner the next day. And I was like, I am heartbroken. I can't even speak. I don't think I can get through a session without, with even saying a word because I'm just going to cry. She said, it's okay. We can start clearing those energies as they come through. She's like, you don't need to hold into them. You don't need to store them again and then do the work later. It's like, let's clear as it goes. And we started doing that. It was very painful, but it was also very beautiful. And I remember that by the end of session, let's call it session 4 or something, I asked her, I say, do you think I can do this? And she's like,
of course.
Of course, I've been waiting for you to ask me. Like this, you're meant to be doing this. And I was like, okay, I'm going to think about it. I don't think I'm ready to make a decision because I think my emotions are too raw right now that I don't even know what I want to do with my life. I said, but I'll keep it there. And that's exactly what happened. A few months later, I made the decision, and it was, my dad died on February 21st of 2021, and my grandmother's birthday is August 21st. So it was 6 months of his passing. And that day, I say, okay, I'm ready. I am ready to jump into this. And I jumped in with my 2 full feet, like right on. I took the leap. And I graduated the day of his anniversary, which it was very, very special for me to receive that confirmation that day. And so that's one of the things that I do now. I help people with the emotion code and all the other stuff I do. But that's one of the main practices I do that I continue to do. I can even do it on myself. I never feel it as effective when I do it on myself. For some reason, there's just this, I need the connection with the other people to kind of bounce even thoughts, ideas with someone else. It just feels like a more complete session. However, occasionally I would be like, okay, I just need a tune-up. And I will just go through the process myself and do it by myself for myself.
So just listening to you say all of that, I think I've actually had some of that done, and I just didn't know that's what it was called. But my chiropractor does a lot of energy work. And whenever something, he's not a traditional chiropractor, like that just cracks your back and your neck and all of that. He really is very energy based. So he doesn't share it that way, but he is. And so if he can't get a balance somewhere, he'll say, can we go to the emotion? And I'm always like, well, yes, let's do it. Right. And so recently, one of the things that I had thought that I had already dealt with, it was this third grade incident, which is so ridiculous, but he was just like, what's happening now in your life that's making you feel, you know, like uncentered, like not, something is not right. Like somebody is doing something to you and I couldn't think of anything like in my present moment. But then he started doing the ages and he went back 0 to 10 and all of that. And then he found, that particular age. And I mean, immediately that thought came in my head. And of course, my arm dropped, and I was just like, Lord, I thought I already dealt with this chick. Like, what the heck? So, we went through the whole scenario again. But in doing that, during my quiet time over the next couple of days, I realized what the present moment was. I realized what I was being triggered with, right? And it really helped me to show up differently, and articulate differently. And I think when we cross over some of these boundaries and we're trying different things and we're releasing things from our body, we are truly able to show up in a different way. And it doesn't mean you're never triggered. It doesn't mean you're never going to have those emotions. That's not what this is. It's not so that you stand up and every day you live like the la-ti-da life. It is about, truly when you are hit the next time, okay, with a passing, with an argument, with a split, with a friend, whatever the situation might be, you do have those tools. And so the more practice that we put into anything that we're doing, the better we get at it. And, right now you say you don't get it as much when you do it to yourself, but in 20 years when you're doing it, you might, it's just the more you do it, the more you show up. But I know what you say, what you mean about like a connection with the other person. I do get that. But I feel, like over the last probably 15 years, like before my dad passed, I went to a body talk session. Didn't know what it was. I'll try anything. And she was like, oh, it looks like you've done a lot of unlayering already, like as I'm going through. And I thought that was so interesting because I didn't call it that, right? I mean, it's interesting when the terminology gets put in and the visuals, you're like, oh, okay, like I see how this is working. Like you're dealing with an emotion, you're layering it back, you're letting something be exposed, and you're dealing with it in a way that is not that you have to forgive, forget, and like act like it didn't happen, but you're doing it in a way that heals you so that you're able to see the situation for what it is, not like the hard situation. And I also wanted to say, I had a friend who said in her grief that she was not able to see anything happy. She was just seeing everything negative. Because I guess that happens sometimes when you're in severe grief. And so she went to somebody that helped her to flip all of that, reframe it, and then pull herself out of that. And now she said is able to see some of the beauty that once was also. So I think, again, the more that we can meet people and see people's, gifts, and obviously you have a gift for this and you were led down this journey for these reasons, but when you're in it, you don't see it until you can get that scope out and then kind of zoom, and see it from a upper lens rather than an inside lens. So for those of you who are interested and have never heard of emotion code, I would say read the book. I would say reach out if it's something that you're interested in. But also, I think that this also lent very well to you starting your podcast, right? And her podcast is called Rekindle Your Light. And it's a beautiful podcast. It's filled with really amazing women and people, not just women, but people that have found something in their life that really has rekindled the light. And for everybody, that's going to look different. And I think that's the beauty of all your stories and people that you put on your podcast. I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you for creating that, because I think in a world of a lot of uncertainty and, obviously we can tell ourselves whatever story we want, but I think in this world, it is nice to have kind people putting kind things out and helpful things and not.
Thank you. That I feel that the podcast is definitely something that came to me. I never saw it myself. It came to me and I went with it. I think the same way that you did, which is like, I'm just going to put it out there and without worrying so much about the nitty gritty of like downloads and things and tech stuff, but more about focusing on the conversations. And I think that because we're bringing it from that place of truly trying to serve people, truly trying to share stories And the way that I put it out there is like, I don't want to, and I think you're very practical in the same way. I don't want to just inspire people. I want people to take action. I want people
Exactly.
to find out about tools that might sound so out there, so new to them. I mean, one of my most recent episodes is about Akashic records. I've never heard of Akashic records before. Family constellation, somebody else. I'm like, I have no, so I'm learning about all these things. Some of them resonate more than others, but then there's other beautiful conversations that I have about how music it's something that can help you process things. So there's so many tools out there, and I think that opening up the world and the eyes to what is out there available for us will just help any of us in whatever journey we're in, whether it's looking for further growth, whether it's to heal, whether it's to help a loved one. All of these tools are out there. So one of my purpose is to shine light into these things, shine light into these people, so that eventually you can find your own light within yourself that is there. It's just dim and it might just need some spruce up, but it's there.
Yeah, for sure. And everything you said is very spot on. It's like, for me, the podcast is to put people on that have something to share that could be their 1% shift. It could be just the thing that they need to tip their wellness in a way that is going to take them to better growth. And if the value comes with me, the value is I get to meet some amazing people. I get to learn things I didn't know about. And by serving this to other people, my heart is so full when somebody sends me a DM and says, I really loved your podcast. I tried this and it really was amazing. I've tried this for a week now and I see such a difference. It's like, that's why I do what I do. It's like for people to be able to take away just a 1% shift from each episode truly is transformation in the works, right? Yes. One of the things that we were talking about earlier before we actually recorded that I just wanted to mention because it's been happening a little bit more often and I'm noticing it, is when I'm talking with somebody and they actually say something and what resonates with me is true transformation. And when we get to that spot where when we start putting a practice in place, and that practice means you're practicing and you don't give up just because maybe it doesn't feel right today, but you keep moving through the practice until the practice kind of evolves into something that when you don't do that practice, you don't feel as good that day or about yourself, or you're not showing up for other people in the same way. And I think that's what wellness is. It's an evolution of trying things on and practicing and tweaking them, just like meditation. There's all kinds of meditation, but I'm like you, I need somebody kind of coaching me and telling me what to do. The visualization, I like visualization meditation, but I also have learned through that and through my yoga practice is just like connection of breath. Like, again, I've said it before, it's a free tool that we all have that nobody knows how to use good, or not nobody, but a lot of people don't know the quality of their breath, to enhance your wellness. So, unlayering stuff with an emotional code is one part of the puzzle, right? And as we can do that, and I do believe, like, in your whole light metaphor, when you unlayer it, it's like your light can then come up and shine when you're unpacking all of this stuff. So if you're listening and you're someone that has gone through something in their life, whether you think you've dealt with it or haven't dealt with it, but you feel stuck, and you're just not maybe growing where you want to grow in the areas you want to grow, this is something to check out because, again, you don't know until you try. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I was enlightened again because I had really no idea of your full story. So I do appreciate you sharing that because it is hard sometimes to share that, but what people learn from our stories is so much more than us.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? That's first of all. And then my last question that I typically ask people on the podcast is for 1 or 2 or 3 non-negotiables that you've created for yourself that allows you to show up every day as you're creating your wellness kind of path and journey.
Yeah, so you can find me very easily. I'm the only person in the world with this name, Ydaiber. As long as you spell it correctly, you find me. And then I do have a website, rekindleyourlight.com, and the podcast has the same name. So very, very easy to get connected. Happy to elaborate if anybody has questions about what the emotion code is or the other practices that I offer. Super happy to give additional information if needed. And then 3 non-negotiables. One is movement. Every single day, I have to have some sort of movement. That could look like walking my dogs. That could look like yoga. That could look like biking, whatever my body allows me to do that day. Let's put it that way. Another one is sleep. I'm extremely intentional about sleep. That's why I wear my Aura ring. Not that I'm associated with them in any shape or form, but I do like tracking how my sleep is so that I can make changes as needed, whether it's like, oh, I'm going to bed too late, or, oh, I didn't have a restful sleep. Let me trace back. What did I eat last night? What did I do last night? So it's always very helpful for me. So I know that I need 7 hours. And if I get my 7 hours, I'm happy. And I can see how my day progresses like that. And then the third one is meditation. Like I do have to find some sort of quiet time during the day, even if it's just 5 minutes. Sometimes all I have is 5 minutes. And as I say, most of the time is a guided meditation, but occasionally if the space doesn't allow me to do that, then it's just like literally connecting to my breath while I'm driving or just doing something like that. But there's so many different kinds of meditation. You can do it while you walk. You can do it while right when you wake up in the morning. It's an amazing moment to do it. Like sometimes I just have my AirPods right there, just put them on and do the meditation right there in the bed before I allow all the thoughts of the day to come through. So those are my 3 non-negotiables.
I love that. And I will drop all of your information in the show notes. So people, if you are driving, hopefully you weren't trying to write all that down. And just before we end, I just want to say that, again, we're all here on this journey to learn. And the day that we stop learning new things, is not, you're not really living, that's the way I look at it. I think, being a lifelong learner and being open to receive and learn is a gift. And we can either choose to see it as a gift, or we can shut it down and put that wall up and then not continue to grow. So again, thank you so much for sharing your stories. Thanks for sharing the emotion code and actually what it is. And again, if you're interested in that, you can, jump online and you can find out a little bit more. You can send her a DM. But until next time, I hope everybody finds that 1% shift this week and makes it a really good week. And we will talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.
Hey guys, I hope that you really enjoyed that episode as much as I did. Here's a couple of takeaways that, as empty nest moms, as we are going through this new chapter, and as we are working on our self-care and self-love and our wellness, we could definitely, have some space or need some space to, let go of some suppressed emotions that we may have been keeping down over the years. So a couple of different things that I wanted to mention as takeaways. Number 1, acknowledge and express your emotions. It's essential. It truly, really is essential for us as mamas to acknowledge and express our emotions openly without judgment, whether it's sadness, grief, or even relief. Although, allowing oneself to feel and express these emotions is really critical to healing and living our best next chapter. This could look like journaling. It could look like talking to a trusted friend or therapist. It could even look like dipping into the emotion code if you are somebody who hasn't really gotten any resolution from, trying out a couple of other modalities. Number 2, make sure that you please practice that self-compassion and self-care. As empty nest moms, we've often been prioritizing, everybody over ourselves, and somehow it just became a thing. And so it's really vital to practice that self-compassion and prioritize self-care during this transition. And things, that you could consider trying on would be meditation, mindfulness, yoga, spending time in nature, engaging in new hobbies, finding a new group of empty nest mamas to hang with. All really important for the growth of this next chapter. And lastly, seeking support and connection. Transitioning into this empty nest, can feel sometimes overwhelming and perhaps lonely. It's essential to seek, that support and connection during this time, connecting with other empty nest moms, either going through, the same thing or similar things, that could look like in a form of support groups, online forums, the empty nest, the Raw and Real Empty Nest Mamas group that we have currently going on. If you're interested in joining that, I'll put the link in the show notes. But having community and seeking that support gives us a sense of, community, understanding who we are. And, I think additionally seeking some, outside support. Again, it could be doing the emotion code. It could be seeking counseling. It could be finding new hobbies. There's all different things that are going to work for everybody. So we just need to dip our toes in and try them out and see what feels the best. By acknowledging these emotions, practicing self-compassion, and seeking that support, we, empty nest moms, as we're entering this new, phase, can release some of that trapped emotion and embrace this new chapter of life with greater resilience and peace of mind and abundance and joy. And this is what I would love for everybody, including myself. So remember to find those empty nest mamas, to practice that self-compassion, and to acknowledge and express the emotions without any judgment. I hope that you guys are able to walk away this week with something of value. And if you know another empty nest mom that might be going through a transition, please share this episode with them, because I think it's so important, that we address some of the things that we have been suppressing for a long time. And this, again, is just going to allow us to live our best life in this new chapter. And I want that for each of us. So I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in today. I loved being here with you. I hope that you got something from today's episode. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. Drop a comment below, and if you feel led to, download the episode and share it with someone you love that needs to hear this message. As we continue to spread the goodness of this podcast, I'd love for you to help us by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or a rate on Spotify. As we increase listeners, we will come up more often when women are searching for podcasts to listen to. To stay connected with me, you can check out my social media pages at Live Life Balanced with Robin. You can check out my website at livelifebalancedwithrobin.com. You can book a discovery call. And if you're looking for a way to get started right now, you can opt in for my new quick guide for the empty nester refresh. And as always, thank you for letting me be part of your day. It truly means a lot that you're allowing me to be on your wellness journey with you. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen.